Hi, friends, and welcome to Module 8, where we're going to talk about technological biological crises. First, I want to dive deep into the technological crises. This is a particularly interesting topic because technological crises, as opposed to other crises like natural disasters, happen on a much more frequent basis, often because human action is at play and humans are manipulating their physical environment to create technological systems. Technological crises can become much more severe, mainly because it affects an entire system oftentimes. So a technological system, it could be an oil system, it could be a power system, it could be a communication system. The disruption of that system causes immediate crises and incidences that affect the public and specifically affect the public's confidence in private or public organizations or corporations. Blame is usually assigned in a technological crisis because there's human factors at play, meaning that the publics perceive the organization to be able to control or prevent the crisis in a technological way, as opposed to a natural disaster, of course, which is less predictable by an organization or a public. It often brings into the fold ethics, which we've talked a little bit about, the ethics of initiating experiments or design or taking certain risks, as you'll read about in the BP case or in the Chernobyl case or in other cases in this week's textbooks readings. And managing technological crises specifically involves a lot of risk and risk management. So we've talked a bit about contingency planning, but risk management specifically related to death, injury, damage of people or property, and disasters. So when we're thinking about management of technological crises, we're thinking about risk management specifically and how certain situations can actually be avoided entirely. Estimating the nature and the severity of a likelihood crises is a paramount in this sort of situation. Again, because humans are in control of technological systems and the publics perceive that choices are made about technology, whether to use or how to use and when to use, that could be made or could not be made in the correct manner. So let's dive a little bit deeper. We get past that idea of risk. When you think about technological crises, there's really three stages that we've laid out in the textbook this week. You'll read about. First is kind of the upstream, we call it, which is everything that happens before the technological crisis. So first, I would think about what are the actual human needs of technology. So can some certain things be foregone to potentially avoid technological crises? Okay, and can humans do without a specific service or product for a certain period of time? You might think about the effectiveness of cell phone use. And there's been a lot of articles written about cancer causes from using cell phones or putting it near your ear or other parts of your body. So are there certain things within a cellular device that can be taken out or that humans might not need as much of to actually prevent that sort of technological crisis from occurring? Alternative technologies, right? Is there clean energy or is there clean wind technology? Things like that that can actually help avoid a crisis in a certain situation. What are those alternative technologies? And then adopting preventative measures. So what can you do to prevent the actual crisis from occurring, right? Could BP have done something more to prevent the massive crisis that they were in? Could Chernobyl have actually taken steps to prevent the nuclear disaster that was? So that's kind of all before the crisis could happen. Then the next stage we might call forestalling, as Lerbinger calls it, or preventing the initial act. So going back to the Chernobyl crisis that many of you, I'm sure, have heard about in your life, the triggering event there was the conducting of unauthorized experiments. So could that event, the initiating event for the technological crisis, could that have been eradicated entirely? Oftentimes it could have been, right? Could BP have taken a different route on their trip? Could they have waited? Could it have been a better timing? Could they have foreseen certain factors that have gone into these technological crises? So you can go down the line of the different cases. You'll read about the Exxon Valdez this week, and so you'll be able to analyze that a little bit more. Okay, let's assume that we have tried to do upstream preventative measures, we've tried to forestall an initiating event, and the crisis has still occurred. We're obviously now downstream, right? So we're on the other end of the crisis. And when we think about crisis management here, we're thinking about reducing the exposure. Okay, that means not only the exposure of the organization, but the exposure of the user. So the citizens, the publics, the customers, the consumers to the technological crisis. So is there a recall effort? Is there an initiating event where you're trying to build infrastructure to rebuild the nature that you're in or to rebuild the physical environment that you're in? Of course, implementing the use of safety gear and reconstructive policies and things to get technology back on, but to do it in a very obviously safe way. And of course relief efforts. So BP, you'll see, didn't do such a great job of that, and that caused a lot of distrust with the publics. The public is a big the consumer or the customer is a big public or stakeholder, let's just say, in technological crises because they blame. They often want to blame an organization for this crisis because of human factors. So where we've looked at natural disasters and they have a whole other set of relationships with their constituents, right? It's more of a public information model here. Here it is a total level of rebuilding trust, symmetry, and reciprocity with the publics at hand. This is a total level of not only image restoration, because image restoration could be crises of deception or skewed values, where there actually is a clear action that could have been redacted or could have been altered in some way. Here, this one is actually harming lives. So it's very, very key to initiate relief efforts and to then think about image restoration after, but to save lives primarily. So you'll have a chance to read a bit this week about a bunch of cases that I've put on Canvas as well as in the textbook. And I provided 2 discussion questions for you, a little bit more open-ended of which case you want to address. And then I'm going to ask you to submit the topic for your final assignment on Canvas this week. So please be sure to check out both of those discussions. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great week, everyone.